Right, welcome to the show. It's Sunday. It's Two Peas in the podcast with Andy and Tim. Hey, Tim.
Hey, buddy, how are you? It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's very good. We've got some good weather at the moment.
Lovely. That will allow us to have good reception, I hope.
We have to do what we have to do. Let's dig into British history then, shall we? Maybe Churchill.
Yeah, I mean, Churchill is a surprising figure, Zionist, and he's thought of as a wartime hero by the winning side, but really, you have to question that. It's a kind of historical blindness that prevents the winning side from seeing the actual character and machinations of the man. He is arguably the greatest monster of the 20th century. Of course, other people will say, no, Joseph Stalin, certainly, or Adolf Hitler. Not if you look into it more deeply. He was most likely 87.5% Jewish and always followed the satanic Talmud and the black magic Kabbalah. He even sacrificed his own people, 11 million Jews in the Jewish Holocaust, with Arthur Harris, as well as 30,000 British and Anzac forces in Gallipoli. In World War I, starvation blockade of Germany, 1914 to 1919, also for forcing Germany under merciless duress to sign the Versailles Peace Treaty. In World War I, the Gallipoli Holocaust, February 1915 until January 1916, Churchill sacrificed his own men. World War II, firebombing of Germany. I think you know about what happened to Dresden, but it also happened to Berlin and Hamburg. And it was largely owing to Churchill and pyromaniac Harris. In post-World War II, Eastern German ethnic cleansing, 1945 to 55, Churchill helped to launch the Holocaust at Potsdam. World War II, Operation Keel Holocaust, 1944 to 47, Churchill helped to launch the Holocaust at Yalta. World War II, Christian Holocaust of World War II, Churchill refused about 30 peace offers from Germany. World War II, Indian Bengal Holocaust, 1943 to 44, Churchill ignored many appeals to stop this from occurring. World War II, Jewish Holocaust, 1941 to 45, perpetrated chiefly by the duo Churchill and Harris. Post-World War II, starvation of ethnic Germans via the Morgenthau Plan, 1945 to 50, Churchill favored and helped to launch this. Post-World War I, Arabic Holocaust, 1914 to 2026, Churchill favored and helped to launch this Holocaust. Horrifying, Andy. You have this article, don't you, Andy?
Yeah, I've got something else here as well.
Okay. What do you want to read?
Yeah, his views on race. In April, a few years back, this is going back on his 50th anniversary of his death. So it's going way back a little bit, but Labour candidate Benjamin Whittingham tweeted that Churchill was a racist and a white supremacist. So Nicholas Soames, of Churchill's grandson, was outraged, and Whittingham's Conservative opponent Ben Wallace labelled the comments as ignorant and insulting, and had to be deleted by the Labour Party at the time. In 1937, he told the Palestine Royal Commission, I do not admit, for instance, that a great wrong has been done to the Red Indians of America or the black people of Australia. I do not admit that a wrong has been done to these people by the fact that a stronger race, a higher grade race, a more worldly wise race, to put it that way, has come in and taken their place. Churchill certainly believed in racial hierarchies and eugenics, says John Charmley, author of Churchill, The End of Glory. In Churchill's view, white Protestant Christians were at the top, above white Catholics, while Indians were higher than Africans, he adds. So yeah, he's got a bit of a race view there. And then he was talking about poison gas, which primarily went towards the Kurds and the Afghans in 1919. Yeah, he's from my understanding, he's like a military hero that was a prime minister from 1940 to 1945. But all this stuff I'm reading is, ow, he's not so much that person after all. Apparently, statements about Gandhi. Now, Churchill had strong views on the man, now
Oh,
widely respected for his work in advocating self-determination for India. It is alarming and nauseating to see Gandhi, a seditious Middle Temple lawyer, now posing as a fakir at FAKIR, striding half naked up the steps of the Viceregal Palace. Churchill said of his anti-colonialist adversary in 1931. Um,
well,
and he
known the
didn't want Gandhi
truth.
released from
He would
prison.
have known the truth about Gandhi being a British agent, and would have been on the planning committee to set him up as one.
Yeah, true. And one last bit, in 2012, there were objections to build a Churchill Centre in Jerusalem because of anti-Semitism of his generation and class. So, yeah, that all fits with the article you're reading.
I had a couple of friends that were in my Shakespeare film who did a video about Winston Churchill and Aleister Crowley, and they concluded from their research and their study that they were the same man. Now, when you think about Churchill practicing the Kabbalah and witchcraft and being a druid and interacting with the druidic lodges to change the weather or alter the weather, to create banks of fog so that the Luftwaffe couldn't see its targets on the island, the British Isles. Could it be that the occultist, sometimes referred to as the wickedest man who ever lived, Aleister Crowley, could he actually be the wartime Prime Minister Winston Churchill? I wouldn't be surprised. This is the kind of games that the Illuminati play. Are the Zionists set up by the Illuminati? Almost certainly they are, absolutely. Rothschilds particularly played a role in creating the Antichrist state of Israel and in setting up the machinations that led to what became the Antichrist state of Israel. All right, so what you had shared there, Andy, was pretty surprising. Churchill's connections to the U.S. Civil War would be even more surprising, wouldn't you say? To launch the U.S. Civil War, the Rothschilds used the German Jew, August Belmont, as their chief agent in the North for the Union side from 1837 on. Originally, the Rothschilds sent him to Cuba to stabilize their holdings after the First Carlist War, but by an amazing coincidence, he stopped en route in New York City just as a Rothschild-instigated financial panic was unfolding. Belmont had changed his name from Schönberg, beautiful mountain, in order to sound more American in the USA. Also, Belmont, Schönberg, was originally hired directly by the Zionist House of Rothschild, mainly the Frankfurt and Vienna branches, but also the Paris one. But Churchill's maternal grandfather was also linked to Belmont, Schönberg, and hence to the Rothschilds. In the South Confederacy, the chief Rothschild agent of change was the British Jew, Judah Philip Benjamin, who had originally been hired and commissioned directly by the London House of Rothschild. Benjamin rose to the top too. In 1861 to 65, he was a member of the cabinet of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Okay, I want to say something more about the whole thing with the U.S. Civil War. There was a safe house that was referred to as a rooming house called Peterson House, right across from the Ford Theater, where Lincoln and his wife had come to watch the musical My American Cousin. My American Cousin is code for the fact that he was the Rothschilds' American cousin. Yes, he was related to the Rothschilds. Yes, he was. And the couple called the Rathbones had joined them in the balcony box to watch the performance because General Grant, who had been invited to attend the performance along with them, had canceled at the last minute because of an alleged illness affecting a relative of his, and so he canceled. A very dubious excuse for a last-minute cancellation. Now, Peterson House just happened to have some interesting room lodgers who had come to the United States after a failed revolutionary effort in Bavaria, Germany. They were called the 48ers because in 1848 they had attempted this failed rebellion. They were effectively Bavarian Illuminati agents, and they came to the United States expressly to create the U.S. Civil War. Among the lodgers at Peterson House were Julian Oka and his brother, and they had a printing and publishing operation on Pennsylvania Avenue at 1111 Pennsylvania Avenue, and 11 is a perversion of the perfect number 10, which is the God number, so it's usually regarded as a satanic number. Pennsylvania Avenue is the hypotenuse of Federal Triangle, Andy, and you may as well call it Antichrist Avenue. How so? Well, the unholy trinity of Egypt is Osiris, Isis, and the sun, Horus. Pennsylvania Avenue represents the hypotenuse of federal triangles, so therefore it is Horus Avenue, basically, which represents the Antichrist. Now, a swine flu conference was held there before the swine flu outbreak, and you can see the malevolent intent in picking the hypotenuse of federal triangle for that event. Who are the swine? Not the actual instrument of transmission, the so-called swines of the domestic swines that spread the disease, but we, the Goyim, who are the target of the disease. All right, so when Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theater by Booth, Rathbone, a Confederate soldier, attempted to defend Lincoln and drew his sword and fended off Booth, who had shot him through the balcony box curtain. Booth then leapt from the balcony onto the stage, but caught his foot on the stage curtain, twisted it, and actually broke the ankle. He then limped to the back of the stage and leapt out the window onto his horse and took off. Now, similarly to the telecommunication network going down after the Kennedy assassination, so the telegraph system went offline following the Lincoln attempted assassination at the Ford Theater, so that John Wilkes Booth could get away. Anyway, Lincoln didn't succumb until 7:30 the next morning. His wife was summoned out of the room, and I believe they administered a poison that finished the job as he was laid out on the bed on the second floor of Peterson's house. Peterson was a German American, and as I said, this rooming house was a safe house for the 48ers, the Bavarian Illuminati agents that had been dispatched to the United States to create and foment the Civil War. Now, Julius Olka and his brother were handing out leaflets and flyers to spread the word about, what was happening in the South, and to foment unrest and to create the impetus and the push that would lead to the Civil War with their propaganda literature. So did you know all that, Andy?
No, not all of it. Just some of it.
Okay, well, Booth escaped, and a look-alike double took his place and was cornered in a barn, which was set ablaze, and having cornered the so-called assailant, John Wilkes Booth, he was shot and killed, and when the body was found, he was discovered to have red hair. John Wilkes Booth, according to those who knew him, did not have red hair. He had black hair. This was not him, it was a look-alike double. Booth survived and went on in life under the alias John St. Helen for many years. And then in his old age, he changed his name to David George. and was allegedly, according to Finis Bates, who wrote a book chronicling what had occurred and what happened to John Wilkes Booth following the assassination until his unseemly and untimely death as David George, whom he had changed his name to in his later years. Okay, so Bates did interview him and received his testimony and wrote all of his testimony down in the book that he compiled based on his long search for John Wilkes Booth. Anyway, when the attending physician came to attend to David George, John Wilkes Booth, under the final alias that he had used, David George, he administered arsenic, ostensibly to preserve the body, to embalm the body following the man's death. I object to that story. I don't believe it. I believe that arsenic was administered as a poison, and this physician, whoever he was dispatched as a Jesuit agent. And I believe the Jesuits have had a hand in the assassination attempts on all the U.S. presidents that were assassinated in U.S. history. Having done the research on all of the assassinations, that is my conclusion. So he was poisoned, I believe, and the effect of the arsenic poisoning is that it did embalm and preserve the body. And it became a mummy, which actually was on tour in circus sideshows for decades until the body finally disappeared. It's a fascinating story, the one of Finis Bates, the lawyer. Anyway, to get back to it, the basic Rothschild plan was to create two Rothschild slave plantations as the Union and the Confederacy, with both first bankrupted and indebted by the U.S. Civil War, so as to then swiftly enslave them to the Zionist House of Rothschild, and next also play them off against each other for subsequent decades and centuries. But because of Lincoln's mutinous non-compliance, the Rothschilds took much longer to enslave the USA. The chief milestones were: one, the U.S. Civil War, 1861 to 65, which enabled the U.S. federal regime as a central hub of London control, and this was later reinforced by New York's CFR, Council of Foreign Relations, which is a subsidiary of London's Chatham House, Royal Institute of International Affairs. And we can thank David Icke for unearthing a lot of this information. I read about this in his wonderful book, And the Truth Shall Set You Free, which he published in the early 1990s. Fantastic book. Everyone should read it for a real history lesson. Okay, number 2, U.S. Federal Reserve, U.S. income tax instituted for World War I, 1913 to 1918, which enslaved most Americans under London control. The Rothschild engineered Great Depression to centralize banking control over ordinary Americans and to justify crypto Jew Franklin Delano Roosevelt's enactment of draconian laws of federal centralization, communism in essence. Okay, World War II, which finally brought the USA under the control of Rothschild totalitarian world regime called the United Nations, whose chapter is a practical whose charter is a practical facsimile of the Communist Manifesto, authored by, we're told, Karl Marx, who is actually Mordecai Levy, who was a Grand Orient Freemason, therefore an Illuminati agent. Number 5, Korea, Vietnam, and the Zionist War of Terror to complete U.S. enslavement to the London Rothschilds. After December 7th, 1941, the U.S. never declared any war again after it signed the UN Charter on the 26th of June, 1945. Okay, so Abraham Lincoln's Rothschild Jewish lineage, which I had referred to earlier. And we can thank Fritz Springmeier for his wonderful research in the book Bloodlines of the Illuminati for much of this information. Half Jew, Abraham Lincoln Rothschild was born of the illicit union of A.A. Springs, real name Springsteen, blood relative of London's Rothschilds, and Nancy Hanks. Yes, blood relative of Tom Hanks. Whom Springs had impregnated in 1808 in Lincolnton, North Carolina, from which they concocted Lincoln's fake surname. North Carolina was a Confederate state, so Lincoln was technically a citizen of the Confederacy. In his 1993 book Pandora's Box, Alex Christopher showed this discovery from the will of A.A. Springs, who left to his illegitimate son, Abraham Lincoln Rothschild, a very large sum and a very large parcel of Alabama land corresponding to what is today known as Huntsville, Alabama. Hence, Abraham Lincoln Rothschild was a half-Jew of the Rothschild Springs Illuminati bloodline, whose fake surname derives from the Lincolnton, North Carolina place of birth. When there's Scion, Abraham Lincoln Rothschild refused to go along with the Rothschild plan to split the USA in half. The London Rothschilds felt obliged to orchestrate the assassination from within a Louisiana club called Mystic Crew of Comus. Although Abraham Lincoln Rothschild was their own scion, he had stepped out of line by foiling their grand plan to split the USA, so they felt obliged to execute him. By an amazing coincidence, key members of this club were Albert Pike, Judah Philip Benjamin, John Slidell, and August Belmont. Later, when the Vice President Andrew Johnson became the U.S. President, he pardoned Albert Pike. In gratitude, Albert Pike raised Andrew Johnson to the 33rd degree of Judeo-Freemasonry. You want to keep in mind that the Freemason organization, the highest lodge, is B'nai B'rith, which means Sons of the Covenant. So the highest lodge is under complete Jewish control. Okay? Churchill's Jewish maternal side. By an amazing coincidence, Winston Churchill's maternal grandfather was the Jewish business partner of August Belmont Schoenberg. Remember, Schoenberg means beautiful mountain. So Belmont obviously is derived from that intended meaning of the German Yiddish name, Schoenberg. Belmont, beautiful mountain. It was a top Jewish Illuminati agent of the Rothschilds. He was, rather. This was Leonard Jerome, the father of Jenny Jerome, Winston Churchill's Jewish mother. Leonard Jerome was a Rothschild-linked financier stock speculator and entrepreneur, coincidentally known as the King of Wall Street. Overall, that means that Churchill's maternal side had strong ties to the Rothschilds and to the orchestration of the U.S. Civil War. Andy, what have you got? Do you want to read something?
No, I'm good. I'm just listening. I'm sort of you know, when you're in the story and you're following it along, and yeah. The only thing is, our country's probably lost a lot of respect for Churchill, because people are defacing his monuments now. But having said that, so are some of the Palestinians doing the same as the British people. Recently, Trump said about Starmer, said, "You're no Churchill." Actually, maybe Starmer is Churchill, but not in the way that it was a good military person and a good leader. But maybe Starmer is a good Zionist.
Oh, indeed. Yeah, they're basically engaged in the same horrible traitor or treacherous activity.
I don't think if you're a politician and you don't have one little bit of compassion for people, you shouldn't be in the job.
Yeah, well, that seems to be a prerequisite for becoming a leader, to be absolutely devoid of compassion and empathy and a sense of being a public servant of the people.
Yeah, when doctors do their exams, they swear their doctor oath, whatever that is. I'm
Hippocratic
not.
oath. The
Yeah, I
Hippocratic
can't
oath.
remember that one. Yeah, that's what it is.
Do no harm. Yeah, they should have
But
one for politicians
they do
too.
actually. This is my point. They have what they call the Nolan Principles, and the seven Nolan Principles are not very easy. Sorry, the other way around. Not very hard not to actually achieve. It's not as if they're big sort of things that that you can't do. I mean, it's very simple. Uh, it's selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, and honesty, and leadership. That's the only things you have to have, and it's common sense, most of them. Be a good leader, be truthful, be open, be accountable. Simple.
Uh huh.
But no, they don't want to do that. That's too easy. They will promise you the world, these politicians, and then go behind your back and do the opposite.
So the fact that the British public have turned upon Churchill, no longer viewing him as a heroic wartime prime minister, why is this? What has come to light that has made this turnaround?
I think it's some of the Palestinian groups that are doing the defacing of the statues.
Oh, so it's been assumed or concluded by the Palestinian or the Hamas group or the pro-Palestinian group. They have determined that he was instrumental in orchestrating the Balfour Declaration.
Something like that, yeah, because hang on. Let me read the last one. It was only 23 hours ago there was a story about the statue. Iconic Winston Churchill statue vandalized again, painted Zionist war criminal. Vandalism details the statue in Parliament Square was defaced with pro-Palestinian slogans such as Zionist war criminal, stop the genocide and globalize the Intifada. Police response authorities in London, Manchester plant arrest individuals who do this, following attacks on Jewish communities. Historical and political context. Churchill, seen as a symbol of British imperialism, remains a controversial figure. US President Donald Trump restored his bust to the Oval Office after it was removed by predecessors. So yeah, Trump has put a statue back in the White House, I guess. But yeah, Palestinian actions doing all the defacing, not actually British people. Well, yeah, whichever way you look at it.
All right, well, that makes sense to me.
I mean,
I,
you could call him a war criminal. I mean, what he did in Germany, but I think that was just, is that not part of normal warship? When you're having a war, you're going to bomb each other, murder each other, and blow each other apart. Isn't that how it happens?
yeah, but what's sickening about it is that far from being the enemy, Hitler was just controlled opposition set up by British MI6. The Zion Nazi Rothschild founded and Rothschild controlled British intelligence service. It's sickening to think that the controlled opposition leader has been demonized and made into something that Hitler is less guilty of than Churchill.
Yeah, true. No, but Hitler's. When I was young, he was the man, he was the baddie. And then it became Putin. And after that, it became every politician ever that ruled our country. So, but when you heard about Hitler, he was that scary monster that, really hated people. And then it became Putin. So, yeah, that's how that works
Well,
with
he was the
people.
1984 Goldstein of his era, right? Just like Osama bin Laden later became the Goldstein of that war on terror era, and before him, Saddam Hussein. They're all
Unless,
Goldstein type archetype that we found in the novel 1984.
unless Osama was bin lying. That was a good article that you wrote.
Yeah.
Osama bin Laden. Yeah, we've kind of come to the end of this segment.
Well, it was a
It goes
good,
quick, doesn't it? Got
it
about
was a
half a minute.
awesome. Well, thank you very much, Andy.
Yeah, we'll try and do it a bit more often on different days if you can.
We'll see how it goes, but I always enjoy our one a week, 1 day a week sessions. I always look forward to them. Sunday seems to be